All right, I'm gonna start the recording. It's 11:02. Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm Amy, the Values and Idea Integrator, and I'm here with the fabulous Sheila Arthur, mindset coach.
Once again.
And welcome to Living Your Values. We are here to create an open space to have a conversation, ask questions, talk about challenges, talk about what's working, successes, anything on your mind related to living through the lens of your values in your life, work, career, all aspects of your life. So we are here and we're glad you are here too. Thanks for being here. And we wanted to start off just by taking a moment to review what core values are and how we talk about them, because the word values is used in so many different contexts that it's important for us to say, hey, this is how we're talking about it here. And as we do this work, it gets clearer and clearer for me, and I hope for each of you, to begin to be able to say, oh, okay, that's the context in which we're using the word values, because people use it in many different ways. So here we're talking about core values as a single word or phrase that helps us connect to our authentic self, our truest self. It's a word we can call on that becomes, it's a word or phrase that we can call on that becomes our inner compass and guidepost and helps us direct us where we want to go and how we're going to get there. So it's something we can use and rely on daily for the everyday decisions as well as the bigger decisions. And it becomes something that is a tool in our toolbox to help us really identify from a very personal perspective what matters to us and how to make the best decisions for us in that moment. So that's what our inner compass is and what we use core values to do. And that's, I think, an important thing to remember as we walk through this. So today we're going to talk about values in that context, but in kind of whatever, we have a topic today, but it doesn't necessarily have to only go that way. At first, we wanted to start by just saying hello and checking in and see what brought you here today to talk about. And if you had any questions before we kind of dove into some of the things we've been thinking about too. So who would like to say hi and check in and tell us what brought you here today?
I can jump us off. I can jump start us.
Here, Rolita.
Well, I think that it's been divine intervention because it's a piece of work that I feel is necessary for me to advance to the next level, is to understand what my values are, what I value. And when it was initially stated to me, it seems like I was aware of what I valued, and maybe I am, but I am interested in learning how to really harness those values and apply them. And I just think that, and not to toot you guys' horns, but you guys are two of my favorite ladies to listen to. So that's what brought me here today. So I just want to hear what's going to be said.
Aww.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. That's great. Sheila, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just, I we're just talking to Amy right before we started about the seasons of life and the seasons of our lives, not like in terms of, oh, I was young and then I'm older and now I'm at another age. It's just like, even within a year, even within a month, there are seasons that happen. There are times when we need to step back, really think about things. There are times when we're moving forward with a lot more clarity. And there are times when things are incubating, and there's all these different things that the different times that we go through that mimic nature. And so it sounds like you're in a season right now where it's time for you to reflect and to just kind of like till the soil and get really clear about what's happening for you, so that then you can come forth and do something else. And then this is the perfect time to do that. I mean, in all seasons, I think values work is powerful. When we're out there making things happen, when we're rethinking things, at all times, it's really good work. So I'm glad that you're here, Carmelita.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. I just want to add one thing too, which is, for me, what one of the reasons I was drawn to this work is there were so many times in my life that I was at a turning point, and I would have an opportunity to decide what was next, where I was going to go, even if it was to stay in the position or career or relationship I was in. But I realized as I look back, those were moments where my core values started to kind of get really clear. And once I have the 5 to 7 set of core values, it's so much clearer to be able to move forward in a way that I know, because I've built businesses, I've taken directions that fulfill some of my values, but not the breadth of them, which means it fulfills some of me, but not the breadth of me. And so I wanted to offer this as a way to help people when they're at those points where they're reflecting or at a turning point, to be able to go, oh, okay, let's make the next phase really fulfilling, with that consciousness of the values helping align that next phase. And that could be in career, it could be in the home when my kids are teenagers, one's graduating. So it's like, it's with the seasons of life and day and turning points, the values have really been helpful to me to guide the way in the next breath, so that there is that consciousness. Even though I felt like I've always been I have a person that lives by my values, the clarity has been really helpful. So what you said really resonated with me personally too. So
Yeah.
You're here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And Amy, I think I just kind of exactly like you just said, this is such a turning point in our lives. We've all been home for 12 months, having a moment to try to achieve some clarity and trying to make lemonade out of lemons of this past year. What has it been for me? It's been found time with my kids. It's been found time with myself. And I think this is a nice kind of feeling of clarity, like you said, Amy, but also wrapping up this really traumatic, but changing and I guess expanding year. And I'm at a turning point as you, Amy, with my youngest son leaving soon. It's caused, as well as the death of my dad, like there's just been a lot of things that have now caused me to really reflect, and not negatively, but positively give more clarity to it. And I think the most valuable thing from the other day that we spoke of was just how looking at situations, just like draw one thing from it that kind of feeds to that core value. Whether it's, I don't know, the dumbest thing of, going on a walk on a path and running, seeing, I don't know, something beautiful, right? Just saying, oh, golly, that looks so nice, right? And then having a moment to kind of say, oh, actually, that aligns with one of my core values, which is self-care, which is kind of giving back to the community here in, the Bay Area and California and the country, but it helped me view things just in a new way. I can't explain it except that it's feeding into the clarity. And I don't think I would have guessed it would have. I was kind of nervous to do this. I was like, oh no. But it's been actually, it's been a moment of clarity. It couldn't be better timing, I would say, for us, for the 5 of us, but for each of our communities and kind of for the country. It's such a turning point. So I think it's all kind of a really positive moment to reflect and see how we want to start to launch in our next phase, aligning with our core values, I guess, that we've reflected on really deeply for 12 months. So that was it. And so I appreciate Sheila and Amy being here for me. It was a little divine intervention because I'm kind of I feel like I was confused and a little bit of a mess, and this provided a little, deep breath and a moment to reflect. So thanks.
Beautiful. That's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
You said so many things. The turning points obviously are so important. And if you have been for the last 12 months really diving deep, you have done some really powerful work. I mean, just allowing that. When you talked about found time, I love that because it presented everybody with an opportunity for so many possibilities. And being willing to take advantage of those and to really kind of settle in and start to get clarity is just really powerful. And yeah, I do believe in a divine intervention, that we are exactly where we need to be at every given moment. Yeah. Even if it seems really lousy. We are here. This is one of my mantras. I remind myself of that sometimes because it is so powerful. It's one of my core values is presence. So I'm constantly reminding myself when I'm confronted with something, or I start to get ahead of myself and start projecting my thoughts into the future, that I am here now. And there's value in that, right? Mm-hmm. You talk about the simplicity of walking and seeing something beautiful. These are the moments that help us to anchor in and to get that clarity. So thank you for being here. You were exactly in the right place at the right time. I love it. Bethy, would you like to share something? You don't have to, but we'd love to hear from you. Okay. Well, we will just move on to talking about the topic that brought us here. And we've already kind of segued into it, these 12 months. I am amazed at how much time has transpired and how quickly it has in another sense. And it's always like that for me. And I think that might be a function of my age. I'm not sure, but it just feels like, almost a year has gone by since this pandemic lockdown began, and it has shifted in many ways, but we are still at a point where we're trying to find our way, wind our way back to what will be our new normal, right? Understanding that things will forever be changed. And as I think about what this year has meant for me, I think the most powerful thing that I have learned about the year is really honoring myself and doing what I say I'm going to do. And that has come up again and again. I embarked upon, right before the lockdown, I just have to tell this story. So I was raised Catholic. And one of the things that my sisters had always done was to do something for Lent. So the Lent season comes, right, once a year. Last year it was around, there's Ash Wednesday and Good Friday and everything in between. But for Lent, a lot of times people give something up as a way for those 40 odd days to kind of anchor in and to be more aligned with the season and understanding about sacrifice and things of that nature. And I thought, I don't really practice Lent, but I think this year what I want to do is I want to add some things to my life that haven't been there before. So I kind of deliberately set out to add a few things to my life. And one of the things that I thought, okay, I need to really start hydrating better. I don't drink enough water. I haven't been physical. So I'm going to commit to 20 minutes a day of being physical. Let's just do it. Let's see if I can do 20 minutes a day. So I started this process like February 26th was the day. I remember it very clearly. And then a week or two later came this whole lockdown thing, right? So I remember going into Trader Joe's and freaking out because everything was bare. I took photos of it. I still have them on my phone, right? I went to Trader Joe's on the Friday the 13th. In the afternoon, late afternoon, after being in a coffee shop, which was like a gift now that I realize when those shut down, right? And there was nothing there. And I'm thinking, what is going on? This is craziness. I just couldn't believe what was happening, right? So I had a couple of days of allowing myself, and I said this deliberately, I'm going to allow myself to just freak out. I'm going to give myself some moments, and then I'm going to like come back to center, right? So I'm going to give myself permission to just like whatever. And I'm just talking about it and talking to people, and we're all trying to grapple with this, and we're shocked, and we're, there's so many different reactions. And I did that for the weekend. So by Monday, I was back, and I said, I'm not going to abandon what I started. So I decided to continue. So I did, and I did it for the year. I've done it for the year. And what I've learned in that year and what I've experienced has just been this wonderful thing, because sometimes walking was all there was. That was like the best thing that I could possibly do, walking or dancing or stepping in place or doing something physical. And I started out small, and now I'm at the point where I can do like 5 miles a day, which is extraordinary. So I could walk for hours now. But it was a gradual building up, right? It didn't happen all at once, and that wasn't the intent. The intent was to move my body. The intent was to hydrate and to honor that part of myself. And so I love that I was able to do what I said I was going to do, and to just let that be something that is part of who I am. So it's like, now I consider myself to be, I've become someone different as a result of that step. Stacking days, day after day, deciding to do that, recommitting to that, knowing that this is something that I'm doing that is part of my value of honoring and caring for myself, and healing, creating a healing presence, creating a healing energy in everything that I do. So that's an example, one of the good examples that I can think about of what happened for me this year. There were many other things that I learned as well, but that's the one that really stood out. And I'm so grateful that I was able to just run with that one and be consistent and be good to myself that way.
That is so beautiful, Sheila. I love that story. And it connects to your value of personal healing, right? What is the actual value? Is it the healing? How do you define it, or what do you call it for yourself?
It has shifted. So it's about creating a healing presence.
I kept thinking of the word presence when you were sharing that story,
yes.
and I know that is a value of yours, but
right.
To be able to walk like that and to commit to that does require presence, and it does require healing. But I feel when you share that, the energy around it is different when it comes from the value, as opposed to like the goal, setting the goal, achieving the goal. It's not that you can't use tools to do that, but the energy and the approach is slightly different, because you're fulfilling something really deep inside that's personal to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that part of what it is too, Amy, it's about becoming.
Yes.
It's like values help you to continue to become the kind of person that you really want to be. And it's more than the arrival at the destination. Like you said, it's not so much the goal. It really is about the becoming that becomes so powerful, because that's something that permeates every part of you, so that now this is who you are, in essence. Not that you can define yourself by any one thing that you do, but this is part of how you go about living life. And it's incredibly grounding in that way. That compass, that the whole notion of a compass and values being a compass, it just takes you right back to true north. And it is
right
in that way. Yeah, so I love it.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
It's a beautiful story of last year.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite lockdown stories for myself. It's like, right? Yes, yeah, look what happened in a year. It's amazing.
I was reading an article that from, I guess it was from today, March 11th from last year, and it was an interview of different, like, I think it was London Breed, the interview from the mayor of San Francisco. There was someone who was in the Trump administration. There was someone in the Biden campaign. There was someone from a physician in Seattle who was getting the first cases. So it just took snapshots of what was going on for each of them on March 11th. And it was really interesting because it was such different perspectives. And it reminded me of the level of uncertainty at that time, the level of unknown, and how we didn't know what was going to happen. We'd never been through anything like this. And the power of that. I wanted to also see an article that was real people, not real people, but people who weren't in positions of power, people who were living through it. My daughter was coming back from boarding school. Spring break was happening. We weren't sure if anyone was going to go back to school, what was happening for families with little children, or people who were by themselves, where was family? There was so much going on, and it was such a powerful reminder of so many decisions having to be made at each time. And I really found that I did kind of call on my values throughout that process, because I didn't, and sometimes it was a little more confusing too, right? Because one of my values is sustainability, but all of a sudden I was using, I couldn't get any cleaning supplies. Of course, I had the only bleach that was non-toxic. It had no chemicals in it. It's like, you can't use this to kill anything. It's the bleach that is useless for any of that. So I had, vinegar, which was awesome to clean my house, but nothing to really take care of this deadly virus at the time. So that was kind of one of the things. I had to collate all my little jars of Purell and things like that I had for my earthquake kit. I had some masks in there, so preparation and all of that was good. But it was such an interesting time. So sustainability came up because then all of a sudden there were all these single-use products happening, and I was using more paper towels than I had wanted to be using. I was trying to break up with my paper towel use right before this, and now all of a sudden I was using more paper towels and finding single-use things wherever I could find it, and the masks and all of that. And I had to also kind of just take a pause with that and allow that to be okay for a temporary moment, and then be more conscious of using cloth masks and understanding different choices that I can make, and definitely composting the paper towels and getting my compost working again in the backyard and things like that. But there was another aspect of sustainability that I found was really powerful, which was, I don't know if you all remember, but right when everything, like the entire world shut down for a bit. And all of a sudden we started seeing these pictures where there just wasn't any carbon being released. Like the cities, like were just green. And there was more, I think there was like fish swimming in the Venice canals. There was all of these incredible, beautiful images. Even Los Angeles had no smog or anything like that. And it gave me hope. It gave me a moment of like, we can make a change here. Like, this is not something that, we can fix this climate crisis if we really wanted to. It's just, we're not, there's other things at play here. And I know the economy, I'm not dismissing the economic hardships from that, but it's possible. And so for me, the idea that what could be possible too was really important, because it allowed me to hope a little bit and go, wow, I never really thought it could be possible. Like I knew we had to do whatever we could to turn it around, but I couldn't see it. And being able to see the pictures of the world where there just wasn't as much carbon being released, it was a powerful moment for me. So it was both kind of on a personal level and a bigger level too, where using that lens helped me both be hopeful and also, conscientious about my use. But because it's harder when we're afraid to also make the best decisions. So, and having to be able to honor that fear, but then at the same time go, okay, what else is happening here? And can I make a better choice, or give myself a pause, or give myself just a break for a few weeks and then get back to it, because it was overwhelming. And the scarcity was the feeling of fear of scarcity was so profound in that regard. And then there were so many people who had so many different experiences too, where I was working what I could, but didn't have to go to work, where so many people had to leave the home And that was, I was very blessed with that. And, but I wasn't, there's so many things happening. So it was a real opportunity to be able to examine the different aspects of it. And I know for me, I got to see how many people, I started to see people who I thought who were kind of invisible before too, to me. I didn't realize, and that was painful to notice in myself, but for my own integrity, acknowledge it, which is one of my values. The people at the grocery store who I didn't realize how much had to go through to get food to us. Like, who were all the different peoples in the step of the way to get there. I got the farmers and I got the people working in the checkout store, but I didn't get everyone in between. And I really began to see that in a new way that was important to me. And I think a lot of us did, to note that. So, and that was just the beginning. That was just like that was just March, like the first week or so of March, let alone everything else that happened there. But it's, the values certainly helped me identify these things and then be able to take action around them, do things differently than I would have prior to that. And for that, I'm really grateful.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So what was going on for other people during the year? What kind of things did you learn or discover about yourself over the past year?
Well, I think I have learned that I had been just running around before the pandemic, going from a store to a store, to a grocery store to a grocery store, to drop this off, to run an errand, to do this, and I was just like kind of chaotic without order and thoughtfulness, and saying, well, do I really need that? A. B, do I really want to make an effort to see that person who might not make me feel so good about myself historically, but going based on obligation? And so I think it caused me to just pause and take deep breath on making decisions about what do I really need. Not to be completely austere, but just really, what are the things I need? What do I want? And with whom do I want to spend time? Because all I can meet with people is outside on my deck or on a path. And so those few little nuggets of personal interaction, who do I want to spend those few moments with? And all at the same time, some people have taken a very different tact on travel and continuing on. I've been much more careful, I guess, just because of underlying medical conditions that I have. So I had to really hunker down and really focus on self-care, and perhaps not see people that weren't as cautious. And I'm not sure if it's perhaps caused distance between some friendships, but I feel that that's okay. Not judging what they chose to do or what they're doing, but I've had to just focus on what my needs were, and that was something that was kind of forced upon me. But maybe it made me reassess different values that those friends may have, or those colleagues may have. So it maybe helped me see with whom I align in values a bit more, and all trying to not be judgmental of others' choices. It just was a data point, and they choose to travel and go on planes and do this and this, and that's fine for them. But then that pulls me away from kind of those, I can't be close to those people physically, and it's also taken and it's caused emotional distance, and that's okay too with some of those people. So it's just made me be more thoughtful about that without being judgmental all at the same time, or it's caused me to have to pause, live in the moment, like Sheila was saying, you know, I don't know, not to feel hurt by others either not reaching out or not respecting what my needs were, on not choosing to go gather with them. I think people might have been upset, and I just had to make decisions for me, and that was something novel, because sometimes I go based on obligation to gather with people, because it's what I was taught. It's how I always kind of handled things. And so I think it's caused more clarity in terms of friendships, relationships, and what truly is important. And I think it's also tension to make sure I don't isolate myself too much too in the process. And so how do I rebuild my community a little bit? And it's just it's caused me to take a deep breath and figure that out. And also reaching out to people who I hadn't spoken with in a while, which is a good thing too, to perhaps reconnect with some old friends that I like. There's just that are friendships that are so valuable, or relationships that are so valuable. So that's what this year has kind of made. I've changed, I think, in that way. So, yeah.
You said so many things, Christina, that I could just that I resonated with. Is amazing, because as I was saying, this whole year, you know, putting it into perspective, how much time has elapsed and how short it was. And there were so many different moods and so many different revelations and so many different understandings and things that came up over the course of the year. I mean, you talk about the choice that you made for self-care and how that single choice impacted other things. So that value of caring for myself, let's pause, let's be intentional, and let's take care of my health, then impacted your relationships. So that brought that to the fore. Okay, so then here comes relationships. And so what's important and who's important, and how do I not be judgmental in this process, but at the same time honor what's important for me, which is like kind of new in a way, because I've been in a habitual way of meeting obligations and doing what I'm supposed to do and running around and doing all these things. And now you get this amazing pause to reassess all of that. And then to have the thoughtfulness around, okay, well, I've got feelings around the fact that people don't seem to honor what I'm doing, but I'm still going to honor what I'm doing, and I'm going to respect and honor them, even though we may be very different. So there are people that move away, and there are people that come closer, right? So it's like reconnecting with other folks who share some more values with you and feel more connected to you in a way. But also that whole, it was just so powerful, the honoring and the thoughtfulness and the pause and the focus. And it seems like each thing brought a new level of just awareness to you. Like there's a choice to be made here. And what's the choice that I'm going to make that is saying yes to me, right? And also honoring whatever else might be out there. And I think, gosh, that was just really powerful share, I just got to say, because it just got me thinking about all these different things. That one of them is that what I've noticed in my own life and what I've noticed for other people is that sometimes when you change, when there's a shift that happens, automatically certain people are going to fall away. They'll either I call it that they disqualify themselves. So it's almost like this, I don't know, I want to say divine, but it just happens that people will disqualify themselves from your lives because of this difference, because it's too stark. There's like the connection, whatever is there is no longer there, and that's okay, right? So it's like accepting that as you shift and change, that things are going to shift and change around you, because there's no other.
And also maybe it wasn't it wasn't as substantive of a relationship and friendship that I might have thought it was. Should that person have such different values and not even be able to show the respect by saying, okay, she needs to hunker down and do her thing to take care of herself. If those people didn't necessarily rise to the occasion to respect that, then maybe there wasn't as much depth in that relationship that I might have assumed. And not to rush to judgment, but to understand that they might be more well suited to hang out with others and with people that align with their values, if they were the type that would even identify those things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's the thing. And it's beautiful in a way, because it's like, okay, so now you have another realization. And one of my other favorite things is that people will show you who they are. Always.
Yeah.
when you're able to see,
That's right.
you will always get that. We always do that. We broadcast all the time and we can't help it. But if you pay attention, people will tell you and show you who they are at this point in their life. Not that this is the totality of who they are, but who they are now.
Yeah.
And then you get to make a different choice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And as you said, Sheila, well, this year, it's been long, but so short. It's made us really reflect on, God, this year is so valuable and every moment is so valuable. And I know that 1 year is a big amount of time in, the last 20 to 40 years of my life. So one of those has been on house arrest, basically. And so how to make the most of that. And I think it's hard getting older and seeing time pass on this and having lost that year. But maybe it's a perspective shift and say it was actually valuable in this year to see what values are, to wrestle with, how do I seek clarity? What does that mean? So it's been kind of a sad, grieving year in a weird way. But I'm good at grief. I guess that I know. But I think this year is there is a bit of grieving, because whether that be friendships, whether that be time that's passed that we can't recapture, I think there's an element of, not to dismiss the sad, but it is a little sad, right? And I have fortunately not lost somebody because of this COVID virus, but I've lost time, and I've lost time with those that I care about. And so it's a little sad too. So not just to focus on the positive, like, yay, we'll relaunch and be more clear. I think at this moment, I think there is a little sadness, to be quite honest. And time is limited, right? So how do we kind of capture that time and make the most of that? Not to be simplistic about things, but I think it gives me energy to really focus on this clarity and what are the true values and what's important, because time's precious. So, and not to relaunch once everybody's gotten vaccinated, not to relaunch into the chaos that I might have been in before. That wasn't really well thought out not as well thought out, I think. So how to make value of the time when we all go back to where we were, or maybe not go back to where we were.
We have a real opportunity, I think, is what you're saying, to do it differently in a way that is more thoughtful and more aligned. And I think I too, the grief resonated as well. It was such a, there is the grief as long with the pause, along with the awarenesses and all of it. And there is a loss. And I think the reflective time, and why we wanted to talk about this today too, is because honoring that. I wasn't really taking the time to do that reflection, and it was important to, I think, because there is so much lost. And I know for my children, my daughter lost the second half of her junior year. She lost her senior year, the
I
opportunity.
know, I'm heartbroken for our kids, right? Who have lost.
Yeah, they've lost.
You know, both of my sons have lost a lot.
Her freshman year and sophomore year and of high school. And there is, you know, and she said that to me, she's echoed that, where Mom, I can't get it back, it's lost. And so there's the collective grief and there's the individual grief, and how we all grieve is differently, and honoring that is really important. And for me, my value of connection is the lens in which I use to look at all of this and my relationships, and offer that lens too. And I was thinking back to Lent. I am Jewish, I am not Catholic, but this idea of giving something up, and then, but you, Sheila, adding something instead. And I think it's the yes and, it's the giving up and the adding too, and holding the space for both of those is what's so important during this time. And with my value of connection, that is how I've looked at the connections that I've had with my daughters being home so much, but I can also hold the space for recognizing that the connections with their friends have been lost. The connections with my friends have changed and morphed. New connections have emerged, and there is a loss with the other aspect of it. And can I be tender with myself and others during that time? Because it is powerful. And can we hold the space for both feelings? And like you said, not judging one or the other, but holding it for all of it. And then birthing a new paradigm, birthing a new way of being. And for me, that's the timeliness of this work, the values work, to like enter this new time with that consciousness, the clarity, the awareness, making valuables tangible so that they're actually can be used in those moments, and being able, like you said, Christina, seeing it in another person, their values are demonstrated in a different way.
Right.
And acknowledging out without judgment, but acknowledging it, not pretend. Like I would often just pretend it wasn't happening because that's what I needed to do to survive a situation. But whether that's in my relationships with work or relationships with friends or family, all of it. And relationship with myself too.
Right.
The connection with myself. So that's where what I also heard for you is the connection for you and yourself was really got stronger.
And giving yourself a break, right? Giving self-care and giving yourself a break. Like that's, not being too hard on ourselves, which I think we women, often are. Whether I have been hard on myself for God, my marriage is kind of mediocre some days. Some days it's fine. Some days it's great. Who knows? My parenting, some days it could use improvement. Some days it's great. I think, and some days it's kind of hanging on and many days. So how to be less hard on ourselves as individuals, but also as women. I mean, I hate to make it gendered, but I think also as we women. So,
the research is there that this year affected women far greater than men across the board.
Of course. And I think, fortunately, I've been in a position to not have to go, work at Trader Joe's and to, I think all the frontline workers or I really appreciate what others are doing. And I feel fortunate and I am so grateful that I have had this time to reflect, because 99% of the people have not had the luxury to even take this time to self-reflect, I guess. So I think I feel fortunate that we are in a position to do that. So I think integrating that into this work is important too for me. You know, like I'm quite fortunate where I am. I should appreciate it a little bit more, and also understand how others might not have the luxury. And I guess finally, Amy, like you and I have spoken of, but how many people need this kind of clarity in work, even in the corporate context, because we're not turning back to the days of pre-pandemic work-wise. I think I think I will have I think I'll have less alone time in my home, whether that's because people are working here, adult kids coming home from school to work here at them. That's all good and fine, but I think we are not going back to where we had been. And corporate wise, I think people will need to reassess values from a corporate perspective too, because what's really important is there a need to really be there 5 days a week, pretending you're working 5 days a week, and that is it. Also the value of collaboration, what we've lost not being able to collaborate with coworkers or with, you know, others in the corporate context or nonprofit context, whatever your work might be. I think we've lost a lot not having that, but how to redefine that and do the best we can do online with that. It's going to be the new normal. It just will be. And the economic challenges I think people are going to be facing and are facing, even in the corporate context. So I think these values are going to be needed by businesses too, or are needed by businesses, you know, and people working. So just a few thoughts. And there's no going back to where things had been, I don't think. Not in a bad way. I just think it's changed. New paradigm, Amy, you know? So.
I agree that I don't think that we're going to go back. I'm curious to know from you, Carmelita, what this year has been like for you, how it's unfolded for you, and how what you've learned for yourself during the pandemic and what you're still learning.
Yeah, well, the main thing that I've learned is that I do have values. First of all, I appreciated what the young lady said the other day when she made it clear to me that I do value good coffee and good coffee mugs. So important. And for me, like even understanding that simple truth about things, about like my living environment, even what Christina's referring to in terms of the people that I am inviting into my space and into my life, and am I having these deep connections with people? The main thing that I have come to is the fact that I'm worthy, and I'm so happy that I understand that now. I'm worthy. And not only am I worthy, but I'm worthy of the very, very best. And so now I have set my scope and my guys on that truth. And it's not just, aside from, of course, I would love to be rolling around in a Rolls Royce or a 2023 Tesla or whatever. Right now I have a 2001 Toyota Prius that I absolutely love and adore. So aside from having those values of wanting the luxury life, I love that too, and being in good, fabulous places and be in the VIP line. The main thing is having a solid conscience for me, a solid connection with source. And for me, I call it's a him. even though he can also be feminine, it's a him for me. And his name is Abba. And so just having that strong connection. And the reason being is because what this year did also show me is that I cannot depend on things, people, places, and things outside of myself per se to guide myself. Yes, I am dependent on everyone in my circle, in my community, TV, whatever, but it is ultimately me that has to have the information and knowledge, wisdom, courage, resilience, tenacity. Showing up has been a regular theme for me. So those are things that I embrace within this year. And then also understanding too that uh sometimes the people who run my country are not the people that that I'm going to be listening to and following. And I'll just leave it there.
Well, I think this time makes us realize what's important, even from a political perspective. Like, and thankfully, Biden, though he has faults, thankfully he is leading the country at a time like this. But I think politically, I think there has been such perspective given to us, right? And at the end of the day, we are kind of all on our own, but at least we have, I think, a better government behind us through a pandemic. We'll see.
It remains to be seen. For me, though, like I was saying, I have to be guided intuitively at this point, especially during this time. I have to really connect to I think like back in the day, a lot of the families that I was around, they always had a big mama. We don't have that a lot anymore in the Black family, but most of our families had a big mama. And that big mama knew how to come home if you had any illness. I don't care what it was usually cured by the same remedy, but that remedy, for whatever reason, tended to work. And I think that a lot of times, like for me and my experiences, I would just kind of dismiss it to, oh, that's grandma. She has this concoction. But in fact, maybe grandmother did have some type of connection that came from her people, that came from their people, that came from their people, our ancestors. And I think that's really important for me. And this year is just really grounding myself, staying connected to source, educating, being knowledgeable, wise, and also hearing other people's perspective. And finally, I'll say this last thing: understanding that the machine that the creator made, this thing is very dynamic and powerful. It rejuvenates itself. It wakes me up. It's carried me for, I'm 27, but my birth certificate says I'm 42. So it's carried me all this time, very powerfully. And so I don't want to underestimate it. I give credit to the things that come from the outside, the everything that they're proposing, but really nothing has carried me other than, something that's greater than anything a man can ever create. But that's it. That's what I've been focused on this year, is really, grounding myself. So thank you.
That is so powerful. That is that's a testimony. I mean, that is just so powerful, because the whole point of realizing that you can't rely on outside influences for your guidance, that internal part, the Abba, the really coming to a place of connecting with source deeply and profoundly, and you talk about your grandma and big mama. It's like what came to mind was, I think you're going to find Big Mama in you, is going to emerge in you, that you get to embrace all that you've known about it, but it gets to come through you and guide you as well. So it's like when you bring all those disparate parts together, there's such power in that alignment. and connection and allowing yourself to be guided by spirit, by source. And it all is within you, you know, and it's like, oh my God, that is some amazing work. That is amazing, amazing work. And the feeling of worthiness is kind of, it feels like it's almost at the source of all of this, you know, because that's how you get to do the work, is believing that you're worth it, that you're worth taking the time, you're worth struggling with the uncertainty, you're worth digging deeper and finding the connections and coming home, you know. And I just really respect that a lot, Carmelita, and admire and support your journey, because it's a powerful one. I mean, that's a year that is such a foundation for everything that's going to come. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would add that too. Just so powerful to hear that declaration for yourself, and it is so much about that inner knowing and connection to source too. And the values for me are the bridge from that to how to handle those external situations. The way to kind of tease that out is a way for me to see the values to help me connect to that all the time with the tools that I have to do that. But then these are the ways how to do that in a day-to-day out there in the world kind of way.
Yeah.
I was also struck with this idea of this last year in particular, the individual versus the community. And I heard you talking about yourself in such a powerful way, but it was still within a community in a context of caring for others. It wasn't that rugged individualism. You were talking about caring for yourself and the worthiness of one person, but it wasn't at the expense of anybody else. It wasn't, and I really appreciated that, because that's something that I became aware of this year too, hearing about that versus like caring for each other and caring for the community, hearing about the family and what that would be like in your life and the generations that are in that knowledge that gets passed down. And there's so much value in all of that. And it's not just like a rugged individualism I'm hearing, even though you're focused on yourself. It's quite the opposite of that. And there's you know, in the conversation out there in the world, it's just a true testament and to the power that you are and your worthiness just coming through everything that you do. And it's a quite beautiful thing to bear witness to. And I thank you for sharing that with us today, because it's meaningful to be able to acknowledge that and say that. And it's meaningful for me to be able to bear witness to that and hear that and recognize divine intervention there, divine expression is the better way to say that in your words. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. My goodness. Wow. And here we are.
Full circle, I know.
Full circle and an hour later. It's amazing. Again, how quickly the time has passed. It's like, oh, what a
Well, thank you. And I have to scoot off the call because I have another thing at noon. But thank you, everyone.
So glad you were here.
Thank you
so much, Christina.
Bye. See you all. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Yeah. So as we wrap up, you know, Carmelita, you know, you were just a force to be reckoned with, and I hope that you can begin to really internalize that message for yourself. I just see such powerful things for you. I was thinking, oh my God, boy, does she need to talk to my niece? You know, it's like, you know, there are people, you know, it's like you have, it's like we're all here bearing witness to something. And this is why we do this work, right? To get outside of ourselves and to share what we know and share what we're learning and to share this journey, right? Because there's so many different ways for people to connect with the things that we say and the person that we are becoming, and they all have value, you know, even if it's telling us, oh, I want to move in a different direction, it all has value. So it's like hearing your voice and having moments when we can share this way is just always like, so I love these
me too.
They're just like so cool. It's like the people that show up, it's small groups, but the people who show up in the conversations are just so rich. It's like, wow, I'm always full at the end of it. I'm just like full with like excitement and hope and so many good things, from this. It's a learning experience all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And Zoom's, I mean, and this year's made this possible in this way, right? Like to be able to gather like this in this form with people from all over. That's one of those strange blessings of this year too.
Yeah, it definitely has been some silver lining in this. Yeah, because it's been good to know that you don't need to go to every place. Like I do like the Zoom factor, because think about how many parking tickets I would have by now. I don't have any this year.
I love it. And it's not, it's like, paring down, like what's necessary and what's not necessary, right? All of this isn't necessary. Some of the gathering and the connection is so important, and it can be achieved in different ways. And all of that, the busyness and everything else. I was talking to another niece, and she was just saying, I realized with the lockdown how my life, we met yesterday, how my life is. It was just always like, we would joke and say, you know what, you can like, oh, at 11:53, she has this, and it's going on until 12:27. And then there's this at 12:28, it was just so hectic. And she says, I never want to go back to that. I am as productive, if not more productive, but I never want to go back to that frantic pace of running around and doing and being here and being there. It's not necessary.
No.
And it's not helpful. So it's like that's what this year has taught as well. It's like, okay, these meetings are fabulous. They serve a purpose. It means that people don't have to be in a building with each other all day to get things done.
Yeah.
Time and place for the connection, the personal connection, the face-to-face interactions that happen when you're present with somebody. But this is also another medium that is like valid. And good.
Collaborating in that way.
Yes.
The form of collaboration.
Yeah, exactly. I like it. I'm getting used to being on camera. It's not my favorite thing. You would think that I would like it, but it's kind of, it makes me feel weird, so, but just the message, when I started to learn that people feel shut out when you don't put the camera on, I'm like, no, that's not the message I want to send. So
right. Well, I'm so glad that you do have the camera on. I'm looking at the image behind you, and I always think you're so expressive. So it is really nice to be tuned into that part. It just adds another dimension, and so it's so thank you for that.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah. Well, thank you, ladies. I've been enjoying this work. I've written down. I'm almost to 100 values, but I'm gonna eventually group them and start to see the theme.
Yes.
But exactly. I feel really blessed, and I didn't know you ladies had this going on. I was like, what? Amy and Sheila are doing a
we're the best kept secrets, right?
Yeah. It's like, what's going on here?
Yeah. And this birthed out of one of those silver linings. And this worked this last year. Yeah.
That's right. That is right. Yeah.
Oh, so you guys paired up within the year.
Pandemic, yes.
I reached out to Sheila to see if she wanted to do this with me, because I value Sheila, and I value what I heard her talk about and how she expresses herself, and wanted to collaborate and see what we could put together and have our different experiences come together to create a new experience. So it was my value of collaboration in many ways. And
you guys, I'm sorry.
I would say it feels like longer than that, doesn't it, Amy?
Yeah,
it's like, what? That was just this year? Yes.
May, I think.
Yes. That's so true. Yeah.
So May of last year.
2020. Yeah.
Okay.
2020.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
this is awesome.
This is how so when I was writing the lens of my values of last year, this was a big part of it, being able to do this together and create a space to have these deep conversations with Sheila and develop this program with her. So
It has been so good. It has been really good. Yes, really quite the blessing. Quite the blessing. Yes. And we're
Mhm.
going to continue to grow.
You
Yeah.
will. And I think just like Christina said, that once this is all said and done, wow, you guys would have a path with corporate America, because people we're, we're lost a little bit. Like a lot of people are super lost. So I think this is a good way to go back north, like you said. But you
All right.
guys you ladies make a great team, because there's like this cool and soft mixture. Yeah.
I love
Yeah,
it.
it works. It's a very safe and warm platform that you ladies are building. So I wish you the best. I'm so happy that I get to
that
be.
is the best feedback that I could get, because that is so important, that creating a safe environment, creating a container for people to be able to share.
Oh, I don't share a lot. So don't take it for granted that I'm being, I'm very but I'm learning to be more, but I feel safe here. So thank you.
That is fantastic. Thank you, Carmelita.
I
Look forward to seeing you on Sunday. Yeah, this is just
her
fabulous.
too. And you have a powerful voice with such important message and wisdom and insight. So I'm grateful you chose to make that choice to show up today and on the weekend and share it with us. So thank you for doing that.
Yes. Okay.
All right.
So I guess we can turn off the recording.
Yeah, we're a little over. But
We're still recording.
the after party. Woohoo! Party after party.
I love it. Yeah.
All right.
Good.
Bye, ladies.
Yeah.
Okay, see you next time.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.